Hi, and welcome to another edition of Journey to Awakening podcast. I'm your host, Ron Ario, author of Journey to Awakening and the Quantum Performance Coach. And I've got a friend of mine here today, Richard Melchizedek. So I'm going to introduce you a little bit, Richard, off script. I've had the opportunity to get to know Richard and really become good friends with him over the last year. And I can't say I couldn't be more proud to be friends with him. He's an amazing guy. And Richard, I'm actually feeling emotional introducing you right now. So let me continue, okay? He really embodies heart. This guy is tenacious, but he embodies heart like nobody's business. He's really an ambassador for the new world that's coming in. And I'm really happy to share his story today and what he's doing. So welcome, Richard.
Thank you, Ron. It's a pleasure to be here with everyone. I look forward to connecting a little deeper and going on a journey together, as we've done many times together over this, friendship that's kind of blossomed into place.
Awesome, buddy. So what I want to do, I want to take this opportunity towards the end. We're going to talk about your Starseed School and how that came about, how important that is, and everything else. But what I'd really like to do first is really establish a baseline to who you are and your journey, because you've been able to transition from being a successful chef into your life mission. And that's been a journey, and that's taken on many different phases. And I feel many people right now that may be in between that space right now, knowing they have a higher calling, but still being anchored into their job that sustains them. So what I would like you to talk about really briefly is kind of go into before you started awakening spiritually, what your life was like, how you started, being a chef, the restaurants, et cetera, and then we'll kind of move in to your spiritual stuff, okay?
Yeah, so the journey really, it's a lifelong spiritual journey. Some of it we're conscious for, and some of it we're semi-unconscious for. And my early years as a chef, I would say I didn't really take the stereotypical path of what most people would take. I didn't fit into school. I didn't fit into the systems, and going into the culinary field was just a creative outlet for me and an option for me to kind of move forward in something that wasn't fully kind of scripted or predicted within that regular systematic like model we go through in school. It was kind of more about having an opportunity to create something different every day, and having an opportunity to be judged, not even judged, but having the work kind of present itself, and having that like deeper connection of creation, basically creating something and being able to offer that to somebody that kind of came from a place of passion. So that's really what drove me in terms of being a chef and diving in deeper on that. And I went in the path of fine dining for a while.
When did you have your first restaurant?
So I started at the age of 14. I ran a small one at 17. I ran my first like executive chef position would be 23. And then 24, I ran two classical French restaurants.
Wow. So, so you had a passion for that, but aside from your spiritual self, because I know you spiritually, and you're a very gentle guy, but you also, I've observed you take your spirituality tenacious, like being dedicated at the highest degree. But you also studied martial arts. You talk a little bit about that path, because I think it's apropos to who you are today as well.
Yeah, so in my teenage years, I got heavily into martial arts, and I studied that for a good portion of that. And that's kind of what started my mindfulness, meditation, and understanding the barriers of what we believe like our physical or mental limitations are, and being able to exceed and push through those. Because a lot of those limiting constructs or limiting paradigms that we hold on to, it really takes a point of testing those boundaries to be able to get through them. And that was something I learned through martial arts. I was getting involved in Ontario, like our provincial like level, and this here at that point. And then that was when my path really started to change, and near the end of the teenage years, and going more into that like dark night of the ego, we call it, or dark night of the soul.
But you also, I want to highlight this because you were actually training for the Olympics at one time in Taekwondo.
Yeah, I was being considered to go into the Olympic training program when I was doing all of my black belt training and things like that for 2000.
Gotcha, gotcha. I just want to make sure people understand that. So from there, Richard, why don't you take people on the journey? And if you want to talk about your dark night of the soul, because I think that is essential in the awakening journey. We can't avoid that process or hide that process. We've all had experiences. And I think you're a real inspiration for those that may be experiencing that now. So if you could take us through your series of awakenings, the health challenges that you had, and take your time and kind of go into it, and even into the nuances, because the audience listening right now, I just feel they're going to benefit from that. Okay.
Yeah, so the journey really started shifting in perception uh, of like my conscious path when I was around the age of 14, and I started having health problems with my kidneys, and this was the process that was supposed to be a more slow, drawn out thing where I'd be hooked up on renal dialysis and have a kidney transplant or not, depending if that was a viable option. And at that time, just, modern medicine didn't provide any options except take more medication. And I think at one point I was taking about 65 pills a day. And we turned to Eastern medicine at that point, and used a bunch of various different like techniques, from acupuncture to acupressure to naturopathic medicine, and just taking away the stress throughout the entire like system and relieving pressure on the kidneys. And we were able to reverse all of the issues that I was having within my kidneys. And this was something that was supposed to be irreversible, and it was reversed within 6 months. And for me, that was kind of my aha moment, where it triggered a lot of things within me. As one was, I lost all faith for the medical system as being, a young man, not knowing exactly what was wrong with me because certain aspects of that was sheltered from me, but knowing it was something pretty critical, and to not have the medical system be able to provide a solution for that, and just kind of say, well, this is the way it is, you'll just have to deal with it. And then to find, this whole other way of living that over in the Western society, we kind of have forgotten about, which is Eastern medicine, a lot of the Eastern culture, and a lot of these older traditions that have been around for centuries and thousands of years, and we don't even consider them. So this was a huge shift. And after that, I kind of took it as like a second opportunity in life, and which may have not been the best decision as a young man, but I lived every day more full, more like it was the last day. And then that was kind of my dark night of the trying to, the best creations, working lots of hours, and really giving everything you had into that day, into that moment, but to to the extreme. And this kind of caused other further, and I ended up having issues with my digestive system, my pancreas, and where it finally broke down, and I was hospitalized for 2.5 months with a shunt put into my heart, and I was told I would never eat a regular diet again, let alone taste any of the food that I had made within the fine dining world I was living in at that point. And at that point, I believe in the first week, I lost 40 pounds.
And Richard,
So
how old were you at that time?
I was around 27.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was around 27, and I dedicated my entire life pretty much at this point to being a chef and to chasing perfection every day and living within this like high adrenaline filled moments of searching for that perfection. And it really brought a new level of awakening to me, because you think if you were to dedicate your life to a purpose, to a mission, why is it destroying you, or why is it breaking you down, or why is it so hard, like you're kind of like a salmon swimming upstream every day, because this perfection you're chasing it isn't really attainable. So it's kind of, you work so hard to really have fulfilling moments within your life. And I remember sitting there where at the time I was told I might have pancreatic cancer, and that's why they believed I was in the hospital. And I had 3 days to wait for all the results to come back, and um, it was just a lot of thinking, over that period. It's like, okay, where do we go from here? From this moment right here, where do we go from? And it wasn't about tomorrow; it was about right now. How do I deal with this? How do I move forward? Wasn't about everything that brought me to that point, but it was understanding tomorrow I want to feel better than I do today, because I couldn't think about next week. I couldn't think about 2 weeks. I was pretty much in the second to second, moment to moment, guiding myself through like a mindfulness test on the ultimate level. And how do you come out of this? And to look at that entire picture of getting better, to look at that entire vision of what does life hold for me moving forward, would be too overwhelming of a grand scale to look at. So I think you start breaking things down into more of a compacted sizes, whether it's like 20-minute segments or 1 hour segments or 24 hours. And the goal is my mantra became, tomorrow I will feel better than I do today. And that's my mantra I've held ever since. And it
So I'm sorry, go ahead.
just made me think about my life and how could I dedicate my entire life to something that I was passionate about. I was a mentor. I was a teacher. I've even taught on the college level culinary, and I've pretty much reached every top level that I set out to do within this field. I won government awards. I won, cooking competitions. I got to travel to some of the, nicest places in the world doing this. And you think, like, when you spend this much time doing something and that level of dedication and achieving all of these pinnacles in your career, how come you're not happy? How come it was literally killing me, the lifestyle? So that kind of opened up this next stage of the spiritual path.
Now you almost died.
Yes.
You came
Yes.
close to dying, but twice, not once, correct? So let me ask you, when you were in the hospital and you're going through that 3-day period and you're breaking things down into bite-sized pieces, how long did that process last before you had another occurrence? Because if I'm not mistaken, you didn't take that one seriously enough, and you had another occurrence down the road. Is that not true?
Yeah. So I had another occurrence where the same thing basically came back, and that was through, alcohol, lifestyle, drinking, eating not properly, working long hours. And for me, so the second time I had gone on the second time, similar instance. Third time, it was just because I ate something that I shouldn't have eaten, because it was that level of sensitivity. I was told I could only eat, boiled chicken and rice for the rest of my life if I was lucky. And I wasn't able to eat anything that would have any kind of fat or, red meats, raw vegetables, things like that. And so as a chef, you can imagine what it was like working within a fine dining restaurant, not being able to taste your own food. So I just set a goal out right from that moment that I wasn't going to accept this. So I changed my entire lifestyle. I changed everything. I changed where I lived. I changed where I worked, the style of job I had, because originally it was always about getting to the top and being at the top, the pinnacle. And then I reevaluated my whole life as opposed to my life is what is most important and my happiness is what is the most important factor. So I started shifting in the kinds of jobs I was looking for. And I moved, I just kind of changed my entire scenery. And I had some beautiful experiences and met so many beautiful people. I stopped drinking. I stopped um, everything in my life virtually and just opened up to meditation, the healing arts, and took this as a new passion. And as I kept that mantra, tomorrow I will feel better than today. And the first thing I would do is when I woke up in the morning, I would have to answer that. I would answer to myself, do you feel better today? Did yesterday, I do everything that was in my power to feel better today.
Beautiful.
And
Beautiful.
it was as simple as every day I wanted to just say, yes, I did. And if I knew if I did that, the needle starts to move forward very fast.
So would this be the transition into you not only healing yourself and experiencing healing yourself, but this was also the transition where you started experiencing being a healer as a passion, learning the different modalities? Can you explain everything that you've learned? Because you've got a plethora of stuff that I want people to understand how potent and powerful you are with what you do. Okay. And
Yeah, so there tends to be like a synergy like within these paths, which is one of the most, I feel, important things for us to take from that experience where, so in that mantra is, how do I feel better every day? One of the things that came through for me was Reiki, where I had a friend who did Reiki, and I was always into, Eastern medicine and alternative holistic options. So this was something I explored, and instantly after my first time I connected with Reiki, I just decided I had to learn more about this. This was something I had an incredible spiritual experience during the Reiki session I had. And for me, it was something that we tend to want to like analyze or explain or understand or quantify things. And I couldn't quantify this experience because it was something different than I had ever experienced before. And soon as I had that experience, it made me say, okay, there's so much more going on than what I can possibly understand within this moment. So I have to learn everything about this. So I became, instead of wanting to go to someone to do this, I've always been very self-taught, self-motivated, self-driven, and passionate about whatever it is I put my heart and mind to. So I started with one style of Reiki. I became a master, teacher in Usui Reiki, and I started teaching Usui Reiki. During that process of becoming a teacher of Usui Reiki, I healed myself. And I healed myself by meaning I was fully returned to a proper diet, eating anything that I could want to eat, and just feeling better than I had ever felt before. And also just gaining a whole new level of clarity, patience, and awaken kind of like level of myself and who I am. And then after that, I'm always a teacher and a student. So I studied the Reiki of Compassion, which is Karuna Reiki. And that just kind of took that whole experience a little bit deeper. And that's something, I was extremely passionate about, and I carry with me. And during this time, I was still in the corporate world. I was still a chef. This was my passion. This was, instead of going out at night or going to restaurants or doing, these experiences, I was studying, Eastern medicine. I was studying the Eastern arts, the holistic lifestyles, yoga, Kundalini yoga, different, meditation and mantras, and all of these kind of like different things that fall into this piece of my life that was kind of missing, that gives it so much value and depth. And it allowed me to actually become a better chef, a better person, a better mentor, a better teacher, and to bring this like calming, focused, determined energy that was grounded as well. And one thing goes into another. So as soon as I was done that, then I started just getting into all different kinds of meditation that you can imagine. So I started with like the mindfulness meditation. Then I got into more of the journeying meditation, some shamanic journeying as well. And after that, I got into co-creation, which is working within kind of higher multidimensional realms of communication to be able to work through like our energetic systems and our subconscious mind, which was a new kind of like level of awakened experience of being able to put everything together in my toolkit. And this journey kind of continued, so on and so forth. I took multidimensional communication. I started channeling. Eventually, speaking light language came through. I took some courses from the Berkeley Psychic Institute as well on clairvoyance development. There's been so many, I'm trying to recall all of them. And then what happened was I started receiving my own modalities coming through. My own connection really just opened up, and it went through this like whole other level of spiritual awakening so this is where, while walking the two paths, for me, there was always that, the chef part of me was always one of the biggest parts of my life. And the spiritual part was something that was, just such a passion for me. So I had these two driving passions, and the spiritual passion was kind of overtaking the passion of food and being a chef and this lifestyle. And so for everybody else that's still, working in that like kind of conflict of what to do with their life, especially after the coronavirus and everything that's been happening on, I held for a while, like I couldn't be a chef and I couldn't be spiritual at the same time. These two things didn't have that level of synergy. It was kind of like be one or be the other. And it really took for me to understand it takes real people, real awakened people to be in this world right now, holding space, and creating that change in all systems. So it's important for us to show up on this level and not to run away and spiritually bypass, our lives that are happening. So I also understood then the power of like the creational energy within cooking and within food, and to embrace like my path and to have gratitude for my job and to honor being spiritual and being a chef and being a spiritual chef as well. So where these two parts of my life started to come together more. And I stopped having that like inner conflict of, which one do I choose? Because you don't have to choose, it is all part. The main part is embodying our entire spiritual path, our journey. And that's from when you were born until this moment right now you're listening to this conversation.
Beautiful, Richard. Can you expand upon your multidimensional experience? Because as I've gotten to know you, you confided a lot in me to share a lot of your personal experiences. Some that you said, other people just wouldn't understand them. So I've had the gift of really experiencing an aspect of your journey. So to the best you can, for the common people, when I say common people, I mean those that haven't got onto the awakening journey, but they know there's more out there, and they're listening to this podcast right now because they're curious. They want to be inspired, or maybe they're having multidimensional experiences right now that they can't quantify, or they think something's wrong with them. You know, how can you communicate some information that allows them to feel comfortable with what's happening?
Okay, so for me, basically, a first major multi-dimensional experience I had was I had out of body experience when I was around 17, and that as soon as you come outside of your body and realize that's possible, and you see everything from a whole other view, and you realize the soul has come outside of the body, that all of a sudden changes everything, and how you look at everything and how you understand everything, because you've had that moment of separation from the physical. So that was kind of one of my first experiences where I kind of went, okay, everything that I had known all of a sudden now just shifted entirely within that moment. That's called the paradigm shift. So that controlling set of beliefs that we have all of a sudden shifts. So everything you thought knew before changed. And it changed for me in that moment. Then later on, I started having more multi-dimensional experiences, which would be higher communication with my higher self. So this is the ability to be able to energetically like tune in to what is in my like highest like alignment to be doing, to be working on. And on an energetic empathic level, I started feeling everything. And I mean, so a lot of us are focused on what we feel with our hands and what we can touch, but I can feel my entire energetic field all around me and everyone else's energy that's around me as well. So that would be another multi-dimensional aspect that came through. Then there would be the clairvoyance aspects that start to come through, where you will be able to see through your holographic sight coming online, which are different, aspects, whether it's to do with visions, whether it's to be viewing things more in, it's a more like a multi-dimensional sight. So you're able to kind of see things on an energetic level, which is not on like a physical level. So whether I'd be working on healings with people, there's the ability to kind of see where like energetic blocks or things that weren't in proper alignment were, and this could be like within like color frequencies, densities, and being able to kind of shift those just through thought, just through vision, just through the conscious awareness to be able to do that. Other multidimensional experience is to have multidimensional communication, which can come across almost like a telepathic communication. So that would be another aspect of that. Then there's also symptoms of having a spiritual awakening, which, is when your cellular system starts to undergo changes of what we call like, the embodiment process of a higher consciousness embodiment process. This is something I teach right now, which is the embodiment of the sacred heart. This is us shifting from our mind and moving more into an open-hearted diamond heart space.
And I'm sorry, and we would refer to those symptoms often as ascension symptoms.
Correct. Yeah,
yes.
We would call that ascension symptoms. So what is happening right now on Earth is the Earth, as we're seeing all of the systems break down, we're seeing so much change happening. The coronavirus has come out in so many different perceptions and so many different views. I've refused to call it a quarantine or isolation. For me, and a lot of, my clients, my family that we're working with, we call it a rebirthing period, because it's literally been a global mindfulness test. So we've all had the opportunity to birth whatever you chose to focus on within this time. So you're either birthing pain, suffering, changes, or you could be birthing complete liberation, awakened, enlightenment, unconditional love, eternal love. if you were at home in the rebirthing time by yourself, that was a time you were given to really come out of there understanding a higher level of self-love, a higher understanding of self-love, and to leave that space coming out as a better you than when you went into it.
And Richard, I want to make a correlation here that came up for me as you were speaking. So you were talking about how the planet and the systems in the planet are breaking down, and you were talking about symptoms of us breaking down, because our systems are changing from a carbon-based to a crystalline-based systems as the energy increases on the planet, right? So we're actually, each individual is actually like a microcosm of what's going on the planet right now. So as we look at the planet and we go, oh my God, everything's breaking down. Well, the planet is going through its own ascension right now. And each of us, for your listeners, if you're having body aches and pains, you're having more stress, it's a time for you to, as Richard is saying, to really internalize and embrace everything that's happening to you, because you're going through a birthing process. And as long as you can understand that at a higher level, your mind won't put you into such a fear-based mode, and you'll be less traumatized in the process, because at the end, when you come out, you're going to be better for it. 100%. Just as Richard's been better for it, just as I've been better for it, because that birthing canal can be somewhat treacherous sometimes. Go ahead, Richard.
I think so. Just to break down, like what is ascension? Everyone hears the word ascension and they tend to like freak out, or it triggers them, or they tend to look into it with older older comparisons to what everyone thought ascension was before. What it basically is alchemy. It is like an energetic alchemy of transforming densities into light. So we are coming into a higher frequency within Earth. Earth is going through monumental changes. Our whole universal system is coming more into alignment and into a higher frequency. And for that, with Earth being lower down on the totem pole, it has to come up in frequency and vibration. Everything is energy. Everything is light. Everything is frequency. Our words, you, me, ourselves, everything that we see is light and energy. And so for this energy to come up in frequency, the densities have to go. The denser light particles have to go.
And Richard, to support what you're saying, so people can understand it in an even more exacting way, why we are in this process and why this process is unavoidable, is because the planet is actually traveling through a portion of space at this time where the frequency is higher. So this shift has been anticipated for quite some time by many people, from many perspectives. And so it's an unavoidable process that we are experiencing right now. As Richard's saying, it's nothing to be scared of, something to be embraced. And it really does cause an internalization and a self-mastery to come to the forefront of your life discipline and experience.
Yeah, it's probably one of the most beautiful times to be alive in a lot of ways, because you have the opportunity to rapidly transform everything within your life, if that is your choice and that is your path. And you want to be 100% accountable for your own energy, because everything that is in front of you is a mirror of your internal energy, your internal frequency that you are carrying. So if you are seeing lots of issues, lots of problems, and all kinds of conflict within your life, it's a moment to step back and show that this on an energetically exists within you, this level of conflict, this level of programs, this level of conditioning, these level of illusions. And once we're able to kind of step back and own that energy and understand we have we have to look a little bit deeper within and allow ourselves that, deeper understanding of like self-love for ourselves, and stop externally looking for the solutions and everything, and understand the solutions are 100% within us. There's no difference between like myself or you, Ron, or anybody else watching this. Everyone tuning into this has 100% power to change everything within their life when they are ready to be 100% accountable for their energy that they are putting out. You know, and that's part of that is being honest with yourself. Do you love yourself? Do you love your life? How many people spiritually bypass that question and they go shopping, or, you know, they eat this food, or, you know, whatever it is, they pick up a vice, or, you know, they make somebody else happy. They try to make other people happy instead of finding fulfillment within themselves. If you want to make everybody in your life happy, love yourself. Love yourself so much that that models out into the world, and your entire life will change around you. All your situations, everything, you'll start attracting in. Like when we talk, we kind of change subjects there, but when we talk about abundance, abundance is a byproduct of self-love. Abundance is a byproduct of being in full service. So a lot of times we look exterior, like for this, we look at the end solution. You know, I want to get a house, or I want this, or I want that. And that is not where you find abundance. Abundance comes from within. It comes from holding your energy full and loving yourself to your like deepest soul core resonance, and believing that. And when you sit in that space, everything shifts around you. That's all you have to do. You have to sit there and understand that you are a powerful divine being, a light being, a multidimensional being on this like physical journey right now.
Beautifully said, Richard. So my next question is this. I want you to explain what a starseed is. And then I want you to establish what a starseed is, especially for those listening right now. And so they might be feeling that, you know, they just don't fit in down here, or that they felt that there's more to life. There's got to be more to this existence, and working and going and eating and starting the next day and going over again. They know, and there's something's burning inside, because they look into the sky and they just think there's got to be more. So explain what starseed is, so we establish that, and then go ahead and transition into your starseed school. And actually, before you do that, you know, it takes a lot of courage to go against the mainstream and start an organization called Starseeds Changing the World, because it's so anti-society. It is so anti-cultural within societal norm to even represent the word starseed. So you have to have a lot of confidence to know who you are, to basically put your stake in the ground and say, I'm a starseed, and I am a starseed. I came here to help transform the world. I'm passionately aware of that. Richard has an organization, so he emphatically owns that space. So explain what a starseed is, Richard, and then what Starseed School is, and how your Starseed School can help people in this transformational process.
I think, okay, the best way for me to kind of explain this is just for everyone to think, when you've sat outside, you've looked at the stars and you looked up and you see this gigantic universe. I never once believed, even from being a little child, that we were the center of that universe, that we were the only thing that existed within that universe. To me, I questioned that from the get-go, and I always looked up at the stars and it just felt like home. It felt like there was so much out there and so many questions to be answered. And why were we not talking about this? How could we look up at the stars every night, the sky every day, and think there's not intelligent life anywhere? So to break this down a little further, I don't think it takes a genius to be able to go look at our entire history and to know our history doesn't make sense, from the time of the pyramids to these large structures on all of our ley lines and sacred sites all over the world, that there's big pieces of the puzzle that have been missing. You know, in indigenous culture, they talk about the star nations. I also trained in Mune Ki. Mune Ki is passed on from the Kiro shaman of Peru. One of the rites of Muneki is called the Star Keeper's rites. And this is basically working, within these like higher like cosmic structures and understanding the flow and ebb and flow of the cosmos. So starseed to me is not an odd terminology. I believe we're all starseeds because I'm actually not talking about the physical experience. I'm talking about the universal life force energy that exists within everything. So to me, we're all part of this universal conscious stream. I also don't want to box things in when we describe and talk about this as well. We're all part of source, universal source, cosmic Christ consciousness, universal God consciousness. So Earth is not just that. Earth is a piece of this within a higher system. And we're not, forget the physical system, the energetic system, the system of consciousness, the system of the one source, like light that is within all. We're all a piece of that. So what I'm talking about is on a soul level, our soul is stardust. Our soul is a starseed. We journey throughout this experiences, and the more you have past life recall on some of this, you will have recall on some here and some in other places and many, many different experiences. So for me, what being a starseed was actually claiming back part of that conversation of who are we as a soul? Who are we as a soul? Where do we fit in this puzzle?
Our divine heritage.
Yeah. Our divine heritage, that galactic heritage, to think that we just exist within the earth realm is a very small-minded, I don't want to say small-minded, I want to say we're just missing such a big piece of the puzzle. We're looking at a small piece of the puzzle. And then within this, when we connect on a soul level like that, and if you get into some of the higher levels of meditation and you start to be able to meditate and communicate within the higher dimensional realms, you realize you have star family all over. The issue we have is we tend to want to put things in a linear way of thinking, and we want to put things into a physical way of thinking. So can we physically go and travel to some of these places within the higher dimensional realms? No, because we're in a lower density, but our soul, on a soul level, we can. And on a soul level, we are able to connect into these like higher frequency, higher dimensional places, which exist within our universal system. So this is being a starseed is acknowledging that like soul level that came into this lifetime. That's how I feel about it. And it can connect to anywhere. So that is basically, I feel everybody. I literally feel everybody's a starseed, which is funny for most people to think about, but they're not actually recognizing the soul aspect. This is a universal system we're in. We're in a universal system. There's universal consciousness. We are part of the universal consciousness. We're part of the universal Christ consciousness. We're a part of the universal, soul, the universal everything. We are a drop in this universal ocean. So to me, that's what a starseed is claiming back and understanding that unlimited potential of connecting to this universal, like cosmic God source. To understand this could be anywhere, and within that exists all experiences within this universe, not just Earth.
So by virtue of having a soul, that a multidimensional soul that energetically operates as physical being that we exist in the third dimension, we carry all the knowledge, intelligence, wisdom that the universal body holds. We are one and the same. Correct? So, Richard, explain Starseed School and why you started Starseed School and what your intention is for those individuals that come.
This is really the study of higher consciousness, and to be able to, so we are birthing a new paradigm. This is already coming into existence. This is what we call about the fifth dimensional energy, this new earth frequency, new earth energy. What that is being able to exist in that full embodiment of like the that God consciousness, that eternal love, that everlasting life, that open heart connection of what we call the sacred heart. So the Starseed School is built out of that paradigm of out of that higher energetic fifth dimensional existence. So we have a tendency to want to plan, organize, sculpt, shape, build, create, and that's kind of more of the old paradigm. The new earth paradigm is being able to be fully 100% present in that moment with all parts of your consciousness on a cellular level, on a spiritual level, and on a higher self level, and being in full service. So understanding how you can be 100% full service to your life, how you can connect to the one source like God consciousness of all that are aligned with the natural laws of cosmic Christ creation, and sitting within that moment, fully aligned. That is being within the fifth dimensional frequency, the fifth dimensional alignment. And when you open up to that space without any expectations, without any attachments, and you show up.
So you'll be taking people through this process of being able to connect to their multidimensional self, to fully embody their presence in physical form.
So this is how the Starseed School was birthed. We wanted to birth something within this new energetic creation, this new divine framework. So if you sit within this divine framework of being fully empowered and showing up within that moment with zero expectations and embodying the divine masculine, embodying the divine feminine, and then also coming together, shifting from a me perspective into a we perspective, where there is no singularity in it, but more two coming together to create that third energy, was the space that we held to birth the Starseed School. And within that Starseed School, it was understanding that level of support, that level of freedom, that level of openness, and that pillar of light and divine space that's being held to allow processes to unfold divinely and through divine guidance. And within that space, even like when we started the Starseed School, the first thing I wanted to do is like, okay, how are you going to describe the Starseed School? Well, for me, I didn't even want to describe it right away, because all we had to do was sit within that divine framework and show up 100% for everybody that's there, and to be in full service for them, and to create this energetic container. And whatever it was meant to be in the most highly divinely guided way would come through for all there that day, all the star seeds that showed up. And so by doing this, by modeling this, as each class goes along, guess what? It starts to take shape. But it's not the shape that we've put through, a linear way of thinking, or that old paradigm of trying to put something into a box. We've divinely allowed this to take shape into what it actually is on a higher dimensional new earth scale. And this is how we birth something within new earth creation. This is how we shift from that older, more like the male energy that's been, controlling a lot of things for however long, where it's more about like putting everyone into a certain system, having one teacher as opposed to everybody being teachers. So this was that huge kind of monumental shift in creating a space that was built within this new frequency to offer support, community, unity, oneness, and to just fully show up and be present for everybody there.
Beautiful. And I would kind of refer to that as more of a quantum space rather than a linear space. So before we were thinking in a linear way, and here's the thing for the viewers, Richard holds this space extraordinarily well. As I've gotten to know him, his integrity, his authenticity is second to none. He really embraces and embodies the divine masculine. He's absolutely committed to his own process, but everybody that comes within his space, and he's incredibly compassionate, really, really compassionate. So I encourage you highly, if you're seeking, if you're searching, that and you want answers, and look at the guy. Look how good he looks right now. He embodies such a beautiful energy. So, Richard, any final words you'd like to leave the listeners?
Yeah, just to honor yourself and honor your path, and to sit with yourself and make that time, and also don't be too hard on yourself as well. If you would like to connect on a deeper level, you can come to www.starseedchangingtheworld.com or over to the YouTube channel to find out more information. And for each one of you that are just going through your own process right now, it starts with just being accountable for your own energy and understanding the solutions your happiness will never be found outside of you, no matter what kind of journey you go on. It truly starts with answering that question: do you love yourself? It's time for us to bring big change. We've lived in a society that hasn't been built around self-love or soul growth for too long. So these are the questions I ask, moving forward. Are you ready to go into your own journey of soul growth? And are you ready to embody your own self-love?
Thanks, Richard. So on that note, we're going to sign off. So I want to thank Richard Melchizedek, founder of Starseeds Changing the World and the Starseed School. I'm Ron Ario, your host of Journey to Awakening podcast, and we will see you on the other side.